What began as a routine reporter investigation has resulted in numerous civil rights violations of two Infowars nightly news reporters, Darren McBreen and Marcus Morales, by the Fulton Police Department in the city of Roswell, Georgia. Exclusive Infowars news reports by Paul Joseph Watson at Infowars.com and John Bone at Infowars Nightly News are indicating that the two Infowars Nightly News reporters, McBreen and Morales, have been subjected to harassment and official oppression by the local law enforcement authorities in the city of Roswell, Georgia. According to the exclusive reports at Infowars.com and Infowars Nightly News, McBreen and Morales had been dispatched to the city of Roswell, Georgia to investigate the bizarre circumstances surrounding the suspicious death of a local resident, Andrew Werdes, being labeled as suicide following a 2-hour standoff with local law enforcement officials. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution is reporting that marshals from the Fulton County Marshal's Office were sent to Mr. Werdes' property to execute an eviction order. Werdes responded to the attempt to evict him by barricading inside his home and refusing to speak to authorities. Known by his friends and family as the Chicken Man, Werdes began raising chickens as pets on his 2-acre property near the city limits of Roswell, Georgia, in the county of Fulton. Following unsuccessful prior attempts by the city of Roswell to cite Werdes for various violations of city codes related to the raising of livestock and attempts to intimidate the mortgage holder of Werdes' mortgage, the city of Roswell filed a 55-page lawsuit against Werdes, calling his chickens a nuisance and simultaneously having Werdes' property declared a conservation area or green space. Werdes was then incarcerated for repeatedly violating or disregarding these new city codes, and as a result of his incarceration and numerous legal defense actions had fallen behind on his mortgage. Under the auspices of environmentalism, the city of Roswell issued Werdes an eviction notice and called in the county marshal's office to evict Werdes from his home. Following a 2-hour-long standoff, Werdes told authorities and reporters to get off his property, and according to local authorities, then doused his home in gasoline and lit it on fire. This alleged action resulted in a huge explosion in the home which claimed the life of Andrew Werdes. Upon arrival at the Roswell City Hall, McBreen and Morales had their civil rights violated by officers from the Fulton Police Department who refused them entry into the hall and told the reporters that they were not allowed to film, stating that they did not have the proper credentials to enter the public government facility or film on the property. McBreen and Morales were made aware that they had been subjected to additional civil rights violations when officers from the Fulton Police Department admitted to having followed the reporters around the city as they investigated the circumstances surrounding the Werdes' death and interviewed Werdes' friends and neighbors. Follow-up reports from the Darren McBreen the following day indicate that city officials are being more cooperative, but the ability to question government officials has been hampered, and any opportunity to get an on-the-spot account of events is now gone. McBreen has indicated that he will attempt to ascertain why he and his fellow reporter Morales have been refused entry into the Roswell City Hall and will be reporting back with details as soon as they become available. This is Chris Leverson, Infowars Nightly News. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. This is Infowars Nightly News Special Report. I'm Chris Leverson. On April 10th, Infowars.com picked up a story by Mike Adams in the Natural News titled "City of Roswell, Georgia Bullies Andrew Werdes to Death Over His Backyard Chickens." In this report, Adams reports an innocent man who had legally been raising a few dozen chickens and other small birds in his backyard in his suburban Atlanta home is now dead following a crusade of terror perpetrated against him in the city of Roswell in Georgia. Andrew Werdes, who died during a recent raid on his property in which county marshals tried to illegally evict him, was the obvious victim of a rogue state gone mad. When Mike Adams released this story, it became very clear that a man was victimized, and the use of Agenda 21 and the green space, the carbon footprint, the human beings are evil, was the agenda was used against him, not for environmentalism, under the auspices of environmentalism. This was a man who had some chickens that a neighbor didn't appreciate, and when the neighbor complained, he stood up again. He was issued a ticket when he decided he was going to stand up for his rights, and he was going to fight the ticket, and he fought it successfully. It just infuriated the Agenda 21, the globalist crowd, even that much more. And by the time it was all said and done, it was time to evict this man from his house for simply standing up for his rights and saying, hey, I have the right on my property to raise my own personal private chickens if I want to. Well, the globalists weren't having that. And they saw to it that he was to be evicted and to lose everything he has for simply standing up to the man and saying, no, I'm going to have my pet chickens. Well, when you get a death of a man who was standing up for his rights following a 2-hour standoff in a burning, flaming building reminiscent of Waco, it's natural for the Infowars Nightly News crew to want to send a reporter down there and check out the circumstances behind his suspicious death. Well, Friday, April 13th, Paul Joseph Watson at Infowars.com reports McBreen and Morales were stopped from entering City Hall. In this report, Paul Joseph Watson reports, Infowars reporters Darren McBride and Marcus Morales were barred from entering City Hall in Roswell, Georgia, and had their movements tracked by police simply for asking questions about the case of Ward's death. Now, immediately, folks, I recognize this for what it was. Hardcore tyranny and hardcore censorship. It sparked me to go out and do a story about this and to talk to my fellow citizens about the internet, the function of internet for spreading information, and the role of government and the place the government has and the role that they play about the information that's being disseminated online through the internet and alternative media. This is what we found out. The advent of the internet, do you feel that it's become easier for people to become aware of the things that are going on around them?
Yes.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
It just depends on how you use it, you know, it really depends.
Yes and no, to a certain extent.
Specifically where government's concerned is, do you feel that the internet is becoming a valuable tool for us to become aware of any kind of corruption or anything that might be going on behind closed doors as far as government function is concerned?
Well, it's probable that people are able to reach out in further directions and connect with more knowledgeable sources than they would in regular everyday life through the internet. Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
No?
No.
Yeah, I guess so.
Do you believe the government is taking steps to censor out information that's being put on the internet about government function and maybe government corruption?
I believe that the government is. It's not that I'm anti-government, it's just that I believe certain things they're not telling us. They tell us what we want to hear.
Oh, yes.
Well, I think that was going on before the internet.
Yes, I believe so.
Do you think the government should be playing a role like that in determining what information goes on the internet about government?
I don't think the government should be doing that, you know. I think it should be open because our democracy allows us to really view what's going on. They've been hiding certain things from us, that how would we know, what direction will we know to take? You know, we don't know all the facts.
So ladies and gentlemen, I'm putting out a call to my fellow Infowarriors, and I'm putting out a call to my fellow reporters to help me get the story out about this tragedy within a tragedy. You know, it's bad enough when a man loses his life for simply wanting to maintain his private property and keep pets on that private property in peace, live it free as an American citizen. That's a tragedy in and of itself. But when you match that, and it goes so much further, when you match that with the death of the First Amendment, when you match that with the death of the freedom of press, the death of the right to redress, the death of the ability to go down to City Hall and simply file an open records request or a Freedom of Information Act, folks, we're heading straight forward, headlong into a hardcore tyranny. And this is how it presents itself. Censorship at every turn. When the government makes a mistake, they just cover it up. And when a reporter comes asking questions, they meet him at the door with men with guns and tell him that he doesn't have the proper credentials to come inside a public government facility. This is where America's heading. This is the trouble that we face. This is a dark time. We're heading for a new dark ages, the 21st century dark ages. And it's simply the result of callous and careless government officials not doing their job, not upholding their oaths, not supporting and defending the law, the rule of law that is the United States of America. So again, I put out a call to my fellow Infowarriors, my fellow reporters, please, please help me get this story out. Help others know about what went on in the city of Roswell, not just with a man defending his right to personal property and the right to enjoy his pets as he sees fit, but also the cover-up behind it. And yes, folks, it is a cover-up. When reporters go down to an American town and try to get the answers to questions, they're met at doors of public government facilities with men with guns told they cannot enter without proper credentials. And folks, there are no credentials in press. There are no credentials. So when they're told that they cannot enter, they're turned away and then followed around town as they try to investigate the circumstances surrounding a suspicious death. We're in a lot of trouble. And it's time the American citizens realize that. It's time that the American citizens knew what we're facing, the hardcore tyranny we're heading for. Be sure and check out Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.com, and be sure to tune in to Infowars Nightly News for further special reports about Andrew Juarez, his death, and the hardcore tyranny and censorship that surrounds the attempt to ascertain just the reason for his death. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.